Hi, I'm Mombi Yuleman, and if you like dark ambient music, spooky soundtracks, moody soundscapes, and otherworldly sounds, please hit the subscribe button to stay up to date on what's new on my YouTube channel. So, without further ado, I know it's been a while, but with so much on my plate for the past few months, filming and editing videos have fallen down the list of things I need to get done. There were attempts, but honestly, I was probably overthinking the way these things need to be done, and so I'm taking a more basic approach in scripting and filming with very little B-roll and fancy stuff, so I can actually churn out more video content. And then if the fancy stuff comes later on, great. But for the time being, like I'm concerned about getting the message out and getting content out and being able to share that with you. So, which brings me to I'm actually able to spend more time on this stuff because I've recently stepped down from my position at my day job, one that I've had for nearly 15 years. It's been some time coming, but I'm at a point in my life where I need the time and energy to dedicate to my craft, not to mention I was falling right back into a depression. And I actually started to get back on medications for that stuff, which I'd sworn off. So there's a point I realized I didn't want to go back down that rabbit hole again. So rather than do that, I flushed the medications down the toilet and told my job I want to go down to 1 day a week. And, I'll make ends meet. And I will be able to focus on what I want to be focusing on. And it's something I'm really excited about. I'm able to focus on music and these projects more. And there's a lot of good stuff to come. So I'm really excited. Which also brings me to the point, a lot of us struggle with anxiety, depression, or fear of some sort. So, not knowing what to do, some people like myself turn to advice a bit too much. I know I did around up until 36. I drank heavily. I wasn't an alcoholic, but I did. I'm a go hard or go home kind of guy when it comes to drinking. And when I quit drinking, music just completely took over, and it was creativity, embracing that creativity. So that's one reason I'm all about embracing your creativity and using that to tackle those inner monsters. And it's a much more, it's a healthier way of dealing with your internal struggles. So that's why I created this group, Unearthing Your Internal Monsters. You can go on Facebook and find it. So there you can share your story and tell us what your creative endeavors are that have pulled you through. I'm really interested to see what people have in there. There's already about 100 people in there, and they're sharing their work. And I'm actually thinking about having an artist spotlight where I have live discussion with an artist somewhere in the world that shares a passion for finding peace through art and creativity. So it's something to get excited about. In addition, I'm finally getting things squared away for live streams of my music. That will be in that particular group. I actually got OBS to finally work with my tractor controller, so I'll be able to do the live stream thing finally. Not sure what was up with that, like back when COVID first started, but OBS wasn't very kind to my controller for some reason, but now I can get it working. So this past Halloween, Jason Stokes, who started and operates the independent book publishing house Gestalt Media out in Asheville, North Carolina, he approached me about doing the soundtrack to an audiobook called Haunted: True Stories of the Paranormal. There were only a few weeks before the release of this book, and there was so much going on over there that they needed some help with the music, and I was only too happy to help. So I was sent the recordings to 27 of these accounts of actual ghost encounters as told by the witnesses. And these were some really creepy stories to compose music to. Hearing these stories in their raw format was a unique experience and really helped to elevate the Halloween season for me. Now, my method of recording and mixing was an entirely different process than what I'm used to when I'm recording like one of my standalone albums. I'd listen to the person telling their story and how they told it in order to get a feel for my approach on how I'd score it. So some people would tell these stories on the fly, in the car, on their phone. Some people told them slow, kind of speedy. Some people you could tell had a professional recording mic at home, reading from the paper. Which brings to the point that doing the soundtrack was a huge learning experience for me. While some of these stories where people recorded themselves, they were like crisp and clean, many of them had a lot of white noise and needed to be denoised. So this might come as a surprise. It's a process I didn't know too much about. In the past with field recordings, I had my own manipulation techniques where I didn't have to do all that much removal of white noise, being that I don't work with vocal tracks. So I usually cut up and EQ'd out unwanted noises in my field recordings. But with these vocal recordings, I didn't want to manipulate their voices, so I ended up learning relatively quickly how to get rid of the white noise. And so these are methods I'll end up using in future works, I'm sure. So I also learned some more things about my personal favorite synth, which is Omnisphere. So despite the short amount of time I had to work with, I actually ended up playing with some things I don't normally do in Omnisphere. There's this thing called Warp, and I went in there and you can bounce this ball around and record with it. And I had a lot of fun learning that little tool. So like I said before, a lot of these stories were extremely creepy, and they let the hairs on my arm stand on end. There were points where into the night I was just like, I had enough. I had to take a break from listening to the stories and go watch an animated movie or something. It was a lot of these stories were very effective. And I only hope that my music served to enhance the experience and experience the stories like the witnesses experienced what they did. So yeah, mixing this was all totally different for me because I scored this underneath all of the actual recordings. I literally dropped the files in the DAW, the actual recordings of the people talking, and I scored it underneath. So I have to say this was an extremely challenging project. Trying to come up with decent music for 27 stories, denoise and master these files in a few weeks while working a day job and having to travel to another state for a few of those days was quite a journey. So there were many early mornings and late nights. The audiobook was actually dropped around Halloween, so you can check it out over at Gestalt Media. I think it's gestalt-media.com. You can check that out in the description below this video. So I decided there was enough material here to go ahead and make a soundtrack album of sorts for those who might have actually enjoyed the music underneath the stories being told. Being that I only had a few weeks to work in, there was only so much layering that could be done, and I took a much more minimalist approach to composing. What I ended up doing was going back into all of those files that I had recorded with the dialogue, and I took out the dialogue and I brought up the music and I remixed some things and sound leveled, and I reconstructed the placement of certain cues and drones and sounds, and what I ended up coming up with was its own unique listening experience. I think there's a lot of stuff here to enjoy if you like dark ambient or horror soundtracks. The album actually ends up is 30 tracks long and almost 2.5 hours. So it's definitely one to throw in the background if you want to add a little spooky presence to your house, but I think that's like any of my albums. This is something I'm really proud of. It's my first actual soundtrack. I do a lot of albums that are like soundtracks, but this is actually my first official soundtrack, and I'm very happy to have played a part in something, especially being based on true ghost stories. I grew up on that kind of thing, on unsolved mysteries, ghost documentaries, things of that nature. I've just had a huge impact on my life, so being able to play a part of something like that is a really big deal to me. So I hope you find something to enjoy there. Well, that's it for this episode. I don't plan on being gone for so long now that I'm my own boss and I'm working on my own schedule. So I'm really excited about the future of the music and videos and churning out content more. I mean, this is where I want to be. This is my realm. This is what I want to do. I hope this channel can serve as a kind of place for those who like dark ambient music, horror soundtracks, or just a place maybe to inspire you to seek out your own creativity and be your own creative and do something and take those internal monsters and make something positive out of it. So thanks for watching, and please hit subscribe below. Feel free to like this video or leave a comment below. I'd love to hear what you have to say. Take care, and as always, may you find peace within the dark.